Hello dear learners. Today I, Dr. Gaurav Atri from the Department of Commerce, BSS College, would like to discuss about the very basic concept of inflation. Dear learners, inflation is one of the most important variable for the economy. It indicates the performance of the economy and help us to understand how economic variables are changing over the period of time. So let's dwell upon the concept, types and remedies of inflation. Let's understand inflation. To define inflation, it simply means the rate at which the prices rise or the purchasing power of a common man reduces. That means you are not able to buy the said commodities in the given amount of money. So, in such a situation, your purchasing power has reduced and that means that the inflation has risen. To measure the inflation, we normally take the consumer price index into the category or producer price index, which is popularly known as CPI or PPI. The impact of inflation is directly on purchasing power. As I said just now, the prices are going to increase and due to which you will not be able to afford the set quantity of goods and services that you was able to afford in the earlier situation. So, due to that you need to curtail down your consumption, you need to reduce your services that you are demanding and due to which you are not going to be able to afford the said amount of goods or services which you require. So, your demand is more, but you are not able to fulfill that demand because of the increased level of price, which means that you are not able to afford, and this situation is commonly known as reduction in purchasing power or you technically call it as the rise in the inflation rate. So, as price increases, the consumers can buy less in the same amount of money and that situation is known as inflation. The effects of inflation is directly on savings. Why? Because when the inflation is going to rise, the purchasing power is going to reduce. That means you need to spend more money, and when more money is going to be spent out of your pocket, you will not be able to save the extra penny with yourself. So, as the inflation is going to rise, saving is going to reduce. And my dear friends, I hope you are already aware about the equation that when savings are going to reduce, that same amount is going to be applied into the investment as in capital for firms. So, in the overall mechanism of the economy, the multiplier and accelerator are not going to operate properly. So, as savings reduce, we will be having less amount for investment or in terms of capital for the firms as well. So, the entire economic activity is going to slow down. The impact of inflation is also on investment. As I said just now, inflation is going to outpass the inflation to maintain the value and the growth in the economy. So, we also need to put more of the money into the capital to overcome this particular hurdle, but we will not be having sufficient amount of capital due to price rise. Then the economic indicator, the moderate inflation is often a sign of growth in the economy. When the inflation is at a slower pace, it is at a creeping level, then we say that inflation is at a positive side. Why? Because as demand increases, prices also increases, which we have studied in our earlier classes, is a very basic approach, because when in the market prices are going to increase, that means the consumer is also willing to buy more commodities. So, the producer is going to increase the price. When this price rise is going to be at a creeping level, at a smaller level, we consider that it is the situation of a controlled inflation level, which is often considered as a positive sign in the economy. Although we should always keep in mind that this inflation should not go galloping or it should not be running inflation. Then the same inflation is taken or considered negative for the economy. And the overall economic stability. High inflation can lead to high economic instability and uncertainty. Because of such situation, there will be high instability in the economy. People will not be able to take proper decisions, will not be able to buy the proper raw material, will not be able to have the proper production in the economy, and at the same point, the consumption level is also going to influence, because the consumers due to high price rise are not going to demand for more of the commodity. So, inflation in an overall scenario is not a good thing for the economy. Let's understand the causes of inflation. The very basic or the first cause is because of demand and supply dynamics. Whenever there is an disturbance due to certain factors in the economy like war situation, or when there is some pandemic or certain other conditions, in such a situation, whenever there is a disbalance in the demand and supply, the regime is not able to function properly. In such a situation, due to excess of demand or due to deficit of supply, there is a rise of inflation, and such inflation is known as the demand supply dynamics. Then we have another factor, another reason for inflation, which is due to monetary policies. Many a times government, the Central Bank of India and other agencies try to intervene in the economic situation to control the unwanted economic scenario, and due to those monetary policies, there is an inflation. Because of high money supply, the economy is not able to meet the money resources. So due to that reason also, money inflation, or you can simply call it as inflation, is there. And the third reason is because of production cost. Whenever there is a high rise in the manufacturing of the goods, the cost of raw material is going to increase. In such a situation also, because of the increased production cost, there is inflation. As production cost increases, price of the goods and services will also increase, and due to rise in the price of goods and services, we need to pay more for the same goods and services which a consumer is not going to be able to afford. And such a condition will again generate a situation of reduction in the purchasing power. That means due to increase in production power, production cost, there is inflation in the economy. Let's understand the types of inflation. As discussed right now, there are three basic causes of inflation, and from there only we have the three major types of inflation. The very first one is the types of inflation, that is demand pull inflation. Whenever there is a gap in demand or supply, when more demand is there, it pulls the prices of the goods and services, and due to this pull in the prices of goods and services, when the prices of the goods and services increases, which is not necessarily required, but because of the gap in demand and supply, because of this gap, the prices are going to increase, and that leads to inflation. So that is the first type of inflation, which is called as demand pull inflation. Then the second one is cost push inflation. Cost push inflation, as I discussed right now, which is due to the increase in cost of production, cost of manufacturing. When there is increase in the prices of raw material, like at the time of war, when you are not able to get proper natural resources, proper gas is not available, fuel is not available, when the wages of the laborers are going to increase, in such a situation, by default, the cost of the production is going to increase, and due to which the prices of the goods and services are required to increase, and due to such condition, the cost of the production is going to increase, and that is why we call it as cost pull inflation. So the second type is cost pull inflation. Then the third one is built-in inflation. Built-in inflation, which comes as an inherent approach because of the prices which is increased due to the past inflation, which is coming over the period of time, which is being narrated because of certain other factors. So the inflation which comes from a default situation, like you go to a tourist place, the prices are going to be by default increased in such type of condition. So such situation is known as the built-in inflation. So the third one, which is by default, which is generic in the nature, is known as the built-in inflation. Then let's understand the demand pull inflation. Why does it happens? So the very basic reason that it occurs when demand exceeds the supply, causing price increases. Second, it is typically observed in booming economy where consumer confidence is very high. When consumer thinks that whatever they demand, it is going to be fulfilled. So in such a situation, the demand pull inflation is there. It is triggered because of the increased consumer spendings and government spendings or business investment, because more money flow is there in the economy, due to which this demand pull inflation is going to be there. Then the impact of inflation is on the prices. As demand grow, prices rise due to consumers competing for limited goals. And real-time example is there during economic expansion, disposable income arises and leading to higher demand and prices. So, due to this situation also demand pull is going to be there. Then let us understand the cost pull inflation. The cost pull inflation occurs when production cost rises promptly business to increase the consumer prices, because of which the business prices are going to be promoted and due to which the cost is going to increase. It is due to the increased wages that can lead to higher production costs, driving business to raise the prices to maintain their profit margin. A producer will try to keep his profit margin intact, and due to which he is going to increase the prices because already wages and other prices have increased. Then increase raw material. When the cost of raw material is going to increase, production becomes more expensive, due to which higher prices for the consumers are going to be charged. Then supply chain distribution. Disruptions in supply chain. Whenever there is a disturbance in supply chain management, it can also increase the cost, due to which the inflation and the producers pass on these expenses to consumers. They are going to be shifted towards the consumer side. If we take a basic example of cost pull inflation, so it was in 1970 when oil crisis were there, due to which the cost of all these goods services were increased. Now let us talk about built-in inflation, which is arising when there is a rise in the price, and due to manage these prices, the prices of the cost of the goods and services are also going to be increased. Anticipating inflation can lead to increased wages demand from workers. People think that the prices in future are going to increase, and due to that reason they are also going to increase more of these prices. Then as prices rise, employees seek salaries that reflect the cost of living. People also want more salary, and higher wages result in increased prices, which further accelerates the inflation rate. And employees expecting inflation might demand salary hikes, promoting firms to raise the prices. And due to this reason, there is built-in inflation. Then the effective remedies for inflation, in which the very basic, the number one stands to be monetary policies, which are implemented by the government with the help of the central bank, the Reserve Bank of India. By implementing the qualitative and quantitative tools, they try to control these inflation rate by curbing the money supply in the economy. When lesser money supply will be there, people will demand more, and it will try to settle with the unnecessary demand which is rising in the economy. It will lead to the supply side of the production. Then there is fiscal policies, whereby government is going to apply certain fiscal policies by imposing new taxes, by cutting the additional pays that is going to be there, and it would try to reduce the unnecessary expenditures by the people. So it will use the fiscal policies. And the third one is supply side policies, where government and other agencies take an initiative to increase the productivity and efficiency, so that it can lead to more production and it can compact the inflationary gaps, because more supply will be there, it will be able to meet the demand and prices can be reduced in the economy. So supply side policies are there. Then let us talk about certain strategies to tackle the inflation effectively. Number one, interest rate adjustment. Government would try to curb the borrowings. It will not give more of the loans, but rather it will take more of the savings, which will be used for having more of the investment. Then interest rate, which is also a very important thing. Consumers are going to be imposed with certain taxes, so that the excess of demand that they are making in the economy, which may be an unnecessary demand, it could be cut down in the economy. Then regulatory measures, as I said just now, fiscal and monetary policies. Government will implement some stringent policies to reduce the money supply in the economy, which will lead to lesser demand and have the same money to be utilized for more of the production, increase the efficiency. That could reduce the inflationary impact. And Federal Reserve examples are there. That means the central bank the Reserve Bank of India, it would like to bring more policies in which some certain basics are like credit rationing, repo rate, reserve repo rate, SRR, CRR. It will have a direct impact on the inflation. So, in further classes, we will again talk about how to stabilize the economy, how to control this inflation, and we will talk about the certain types of inflation. In this video, we have discussed about the demand pull, cost pull, and built-in inflation. We have discussed about monetary policy, fiscal policies, and inflation should be properly managed, because a creeping inflation is going to be a positive side for economy, but the inflation should not go to the running inflation or galloping inflation. Thank you for now.